Listen, when Fox News are questioning your wartime decisions, it's not looking good, is it?
So we have two ousters today, this time from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He has asked Army Chief of Staff General Randy George to leave his post. George is the Army's most senior general. A defense official says Hegseth asked General George to retire immediately.
I don't agree with his dismissal for sure because of what he's doing to the Army and the change it's impacting the department writ large.
That's what I've heard too.
Sometimes you don't need an official statement to understand what's happening inside an administration. You can see it in their decisions. And right now, the decisions coming out of the White House suggest something very different from control regarding the war in Iran. They suggest panic, actually, because according to new reporting, the Pentagon under Trump's direction has been abruptly firing and sidelining top military officials during an act of war to the tune of 13 personnel, a move that has completely stunned defense insiders.
General George is now out, was asked to retire yesterday. He's a personal friend of yours. What do we lose when we lose General George?
He's a generational chief of staff, as far as I'm concerned. I haven't seen anybody quite like him. He's got the intelligence. He's got the discipline. His warfighting experience is enormous. He's got the warrior ethos. And he's transforming the Army and taking it into the new technology and warfare that is so changing.
Right.
The truth is he's leading the other services in most of all of that. Right. And I don't agree with his dismissal for sure because of what he's doing to the Army and the change it's impacting the department writ large.
That's what I've heard too.
Now, at the center of this story is the forced removal of the Army's top general during active conflict, General Randy George, a career military officer with decades of experience. Well, he was pushed out early along with other senior leaders as part of a broader shakeup inside the Pentagon.
Yesterday, Hegseth surprised the Pentagon and White House by firing the Army Chief General Randy George, a respected close ally of Army Secretary Dan Driscoll. Multiple sources tell us the removal has to do with Secretary Hegseth's rivalry with Dan Driscoll, who is a close ally of Vice President J.D. Vance and was considered on the short list to replace Hegseth at one point, Laura.
But what's emerging behind the scenes is even more controversial and frankly astounding. Reporting indicates that Pete Hegseth didn't just reshuffle leadership. He personally intervened in the military promotions process, blocking or delaying promotions for more than a dozen senior officers, mostly women and black officers. Now, according to reports, in at least some cases, officials resisted pressure to remove minority officers from promotion lists, and those disputes appear to have contributed to the broader leadership purge. And officials inside the defense establishment have described the decision in stark terms, warning that it risks disrupting command continuity at a critical moment during a war. I mean, the timing is what stands out. I mean, the decisions are disgraceful, but the fact that they are happening during an active conflict, I mean, this is what happens when you fast track a Fox News host to overseeing the military. And then when you layer that on top of what happened today, where we have US military aircraft being shot down in separate incidents across Iran while conducting combat operations against Iran, setting off a search and rescue effort that remains ongoing at the time of recording this video.
Why do you think the president hasn't spoken about this on camera today? Does that stand out to you at all?
No, it sounds to me like he's probably back in a panic mode, wishing he could find a way to declare victory and get out of this war, regardless of whether or not he opens the Strait of Hormuz before he does it. I think that's a mistake, too. I think that if there had been an effective decision-making process before the war started and these concerns were raised and they bothered the president, he had the option then not to initiate the attack. But apparently he was satisfied. Now, if things are upsetting him that he either didn't think about or didn't pay any attention to in the run-up to the war, that's a problem for him, and therefore it's a problem for the country. But it was easily avoided and should have been avoided.
U.S. officials said that a U.S. F-15 fighter and a A-10 attack plane were lost to hostile fire. One crew member has been rescued and another is still missing at the time of this video. 2 Black Hawks were also hit before retreating.
What can you tell us about the expectations?
Well, I think what's most notable is that there have been no statements from U.S. Central Command, no statements from the Pentagon. Secretary Hegseth and the rest of the national security team have been over at the White House with the president. No statements from the president or the White House. That suggests to me that we are in a very intense phase, a very dangerous phase in terms of, the ticking clock in terms of trying to find this second crew member. It is very, very delicate, and obviously nobody wants the Iranians to have a propaganda win by either capturing this crew member or so we are waiting. It is tense. It has been very tense. Normally, we're able to speak to people behind the scenes and find out what's going on, but they have all been very tight-lipped today. That's why information is so scarce, Tommy.
And all of this matters, right, for a very specific reason, because just days ago, Donald Trump stood in front of the nation and he claimed that Iran's air defenses had effectively been neutralized and that the U.S. had established complete dominance in the fight.
They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force.
Search is on. Meantime, an Iranian news anchor on state-controlled media put out a bounty for the missing airman. The audience was told to find him and turn him in over to local police for a, quote, precious prize. And the Iranian propaganda machine was quick to jump on this as evidence that air defenses are not.
Following false claims by the U.S. president about the complete destruction of Iran's air defense system, an American hostile fighter jet was shot down in central Iranian airspace by a newly developed advanced aerospace defense system operated by the IRG.
If air defenses were truly defeated, frontline U.S. fighter jets would not be getting shot down. And this just proves how at risk military members are, especially when you have a commander-in-chief who's just lying to the country. I mean, how many more firings, how many more warnings from inside the military before Republicans grow a spine and speak up against their cult leader? It's pathetic. Military leaders warned about escalation, right? They were ignored. And despite public claims of success from the president, it couldn't be further from the truth. And instead of facing this reality, they're just purging anyone who dares not fall in line, it seems. And all this is happening as pressure builds from every direction. I mean, you have falling approval ratings across the board.
Costs. Take a look here. Take a look at Donald Trump's overall net approval rating. This is the lowest of his term, the lowest of his second term. We're talking about minus 17 points, 17 points underwater. And unlike in Donald Trump's first term, in which he was negative basically throughout his entire term, Trump actually started off in positive territory here in his second term. But now he's at the lowest point of his second term. But there's an even bigger comparison to be made, okay? So obviously Trump was elected once back in 2016. Then he took a 4-year break. And then, of course, he's serving his second term, and it's his second presidency. So I went back and I looked at all of the presidents at this point in a presidency, all of them at this point in a presidency. And guess what? Donald Trump is the lowest ever at this point in a presidency, lower than Joe Biden, lower than Jimmy Carter, lower than Ronald Reagan. He's lower than all of them at this point in a presidency. You know, you can make any sort of swimming comparison you want. Maybe you want to make a comparison with a diver like Greg Louganis. Maybe you want to make a swimming comparison, Michael Phelps. Maybe if you're me, like an old Jewish soul, you want to make a comparison with Mark Spitz. Either way, he is very much
growing public opposition to this very war.
As this thing goes south, we need to know exactly who talked him into it and what representations were made to convince the president that this was a good idea. Who specifically? The names we know are Bibi Netanyahu first and foremost, Lindsey Graham equally to blame. We know from the Wall Street Journal report that Mark Thiessen of Fox News and General Jack Keane were major advocates of the war. Okay, like those guys, but they appear to have been very wrong that this was a good idea. And we could keep going. Mark Levin, chief among them. He says now, oh, it wasn't me. Every night on Fox News out there, urging the president to do this. And then he had a meeting with him in June where we know he denies it now. We know he pushed him for this. Ben Shapiro was out on his show every day pushing this war. Like, there were very prominent activists on the right who were practically frothing at the mouth for this thing. And now that it's not only going poorly, but the president's poll numbers are in a precipitous free fall, we'd love to see some accountability. Who promised him what?
Internal skepticism from military and intelligence officials, some of them that are quitting, and now visible cracks in the battlefield narrative itself, and reshuffling leadership in the middle of all of it is so bonkers that Fox News hosts, the professional verbal gymnasts who will spin anything in Trump's favor, can't back it and won't. All of the above are signs that the narrative is becoming harder and harder to manage.
In our politics lead, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth fired the U.S. Army Chief of Staff, General Randy George, and 2 other top Army generals on Thursday. Dismissals that come as the U.S. appears poised to intensify strikes, and the Pentagon is weighing a potential ground invasion in Iran. In a post, Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell framed General George's firing as a retirement, effective immediately. A U.S. official told CNN that senior Army leadership had been caught off guard. Quote, "It doesn't feel like a very thought-out decision," unquote. Now, I have been personally covering General Randy George's career for about 15 years. I wrote a book in 2012 about the ill-fated combat outpost Keating, which had been, in 2006, placed in a dangerous position in Afghanistan. Then Colonel Randy George and his Lieutenant Colonel Brad Brown tried to shut down that outpost in 2008 because of the precarious position it was in, although their warnings were not heeded with any urgency. And then Cop Keating was devastatingly attacked in 2009. Those who know General Randy George consider him to be well-respected, smart, strategic, someone who acts with the best interests of his service members and the United States at the top of his mind. His dismissal, along with that of Chief of Chaplains Major General William Green Jr. and Commander of Army Transformation and Training Command General David Hodney, are just the latest in a string of abrupt firings that Hegseth has carried out inside the Pentagon since he took office. Hegseth has fired more than a dozen senior military officers over the last year. In fact, he's almost completely remade the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Just 2 officials remain from before President Trump took office. Marine Corps Commandant General Eric Smith and Chief of Space Operations General B. Chance Saltzman. Now, you might have noticed if you look at that photo, Hegseth's version of the Joint Chiefs, those are entirely white men, despite the fact that as of 2024, nearly 33% of active duty service members are of color, and nearly 18% are women. Hegseth made it quite clear that that type of representation in the top ranks does not matter to him.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.